Hello, my name is Brona Mason, and I'd like to present my PoP, my problem of practice. So for me, current classrooms practices play a pivotal role in shaping students' learning experiences. However, it is essential to recognise that not all students thrive within these practices, whether in nursery, primary or high school. Or in any forms of education, I have to say. How can all students engage more effectively in their learning? So a little bit about myself. My name is Brona Mason. I'm a P5 teacher. So I teach 8 and 9-year-olds. I'm also the ICT coordinator. I'm from County Down, and our school is in a small little village in Loughlin Island, County Down. So it is a Catholic maintained primary school. There's boys and girls attend our school. The school caters for students aged 4 to 11, and there's about 187 children enrolled at St. McCartan's Primary School. So what am I passionate about? I'm passionate about the spark that ignites learning, fuels curiosity, and transforms ordinary moments into extraordinary moments. Passion fuels innovation, whether it's integrating technology, trying new teaching methods, or adapting to changing times. As an educator, I thrive on pushing boundaries for all my students. Student engagement is the heartbeat of effective teaching, and when students are actively involved in their learning, magic happens. So what do I notice that could be improved or better understood? For me, it's students being allowed to have a greater choice and involving them in what works for them in relation to class project work. And I think it's important to stress what works for them. Harness technology, integrate technology tools that enhance the learning, regardless of what the apps are, the games. It's about using the technology strategically to reinforce the concepts and make learning more dynamic. Connection is so important, connection within the classroom, within that whole environment. Building strong relationships with students is essential, but it does take time to understand their interests, learning styles, and backgrounds. For me, this is just not my children in my class, it's the children throughout the school as well. I feel sometimes this may be a bit controversial, allowing educators to personalise their teaching approach based on their unique needs and preferences rather than one size fits all, and foster collaboration. Group work encourages students to learn from each other, express their ideas, and collaborate effectively, which is really, really important. So, if this PoP was fully addressed, what would it look like? For me, it's self-confidence, a vibrant and dynamic learning environment, active participation. You could just feel the whole atmosphere within when, you know, as a teacher, as an educator, when your class, when your children are totally involved and are very active in their learning. Deep learning as well. I think for me also the intrinsic motivation, you know, children wanting to do something rather than having to do something. The creativity and the innovation, the collaboration and the peer learning. Most importantly as well, another really important one is, if this PoP was fully addressed, the lifelong learners, just expert learners in their own fields. So what would learners, educators, stakeholders be doing and saying about my PoP? A more positive classroom environment, establishing a welcoming and inclusive atmosphere, inclusive of all the students in my class. Recognition of individual differences, understanding students' interests and learning strategies and their needs. They would hopefully notice that the engagement has increased, and receiving the feedback from students to allow for adjustments. So they all work, like they intertwine in each other. So barriers. What barriers prevent me from realising this vision now? I think for me, and as my presentation goes on, the barriers are widespread for me in relation to, and I think in a lot of schools they're similar. The financial constraints, the lack of staff, resources, finance within the educational setting. Another big barrier for me would be staff buy-in. Some members of staff are consumed with the testing results, and it's about changing the mindset. You know, there's more than just a score at the end of the day, and not enough time in the day, not enough hours in the day. So what has research into this subject shown me? So I looked at this research, the UDL guidelines, and I also got one as well from my chartered colleague. So yeah, it's like, and I thought the second one was quite interesting because it looked at the British and American classrooms compared to the European classrooms. The British and American classrooms have long since been dominated by seemingly unnatural question-answer recitation. I know when I was growing up in education, you only put your hand up to speak if you wanted to answer a question, as opposed to the continental classroom, where there was more time devoted to dialogue and inquiry, both two interesting pieces of information. So my data collection. I was observed by a fellow teacher on 2 occasions while teaching numeracy lesson in the morning. The topic was coordinates. Data was obtained in relation to the different engagements from students over this period. And as you can see from my pictures, I had a what do I want to know board, a QR code, and children were able to ask questions as well. So my data collection, I created a QR code for student engagement. And this just happened to be a couple of weeks prior to our PoP that when I was talking to Mags Flood, that she had said to me about how useful she found it in her classroom. So I took the idea and it has been a real game changer in my class. So the post-data analysis, 17 students in my class, one was absent. So 100% participated in the pair and share with their partners. 60% used the QR code to find out more about coordinates, free movement in the classroom. So they are allowed to get up and move if they wanted to. 85%, which was excellent for me, access the what do I want to know board, and 75% engaged throughout the lesson verbally. So they did put their hand up to ask questions as well. So my observations, I obviously have a small number of children in the class. This one for me was very interesting, actually. The children researched coordinates the night before independently after being informed about the topic the previous day. So I had said to the children, oh, tomorrow we're doing coordinates. And that's all I said. I actually said to the children if they'd like, they could access their Mathletics account. The next day, I had a little girl come to me and say, I went on to coordinates. So this was about independent learning. She knew about coordinates. It wasn't for me, she knew. She had went and resourced the information. So fantastic. Positive engagement with the pair and share, which was really interesting. Also, many thanks to Mags for giving me the idea of what do I want to know board. And the board is a major asset in my class for all students. And it's not numeracy they use it for everything. Children are engaging in year 5 in a positive manner. So I feel as if my PoP has totally flipped itself, thanks to UDL. Some children prefer to use the post-its than asking the question verbally, which is fine. And a number of children use the QR code and the board asking the same question. So I thought that was quite interesting. So I look at the SAMR model and I could see the substitution, the augmentation, independent learning. Students can research it independently, like the little girl who went on to hers and did it herself. And also the modification, for me, the significant engagement, the interactive and the personalized as well. And the redefinition as well, where the high engagement students participate in collaborative projects. So this I felt was really engaging for my class. So when I look at UDL, it's like, now what? Where do we go with UDL? It's invaluable in my classroom, and it will be implemented in the forthcoming academic year in all classes in St. McCartan's Primary School. It's going to be put in quite gently. I have quite a number of teachers already with that are using the What I Need to Know board, the QR code as well. In my class, there's a wide range of enthusiasm. So UDL allows me to anticipate this variability as well and to nurture my expert learners. So there's no need for special tools. My students can choose from the tools available to them and they adapt them as needed. So it's about flexible learning and it's they're taking responsibility. Reducing the barriers, the focus shifts from changing the students to optimizing the learning environment itself. It's a win-win for all, the multiple means of engagement, like looking at promoting the expectations and beliefs and optimizing the motivation. the comprehension as well, and the expression and communication, the action and expression. This flexibility accommodates different learning preferences and abilities. So it is a win-win for all for the UDL. So for me, it is a never-ending story, the UDL story, for me, and it's to be continued. I think I've just started off on my UDL journey, and I know that next year I'll also, I have so much more on board than what I had last year. And this is my picture of my country lane that I walk after my UDL on a Tuesday. So yeah, thank you for listening, and I hope you've enjoyed my presentation.
Rona, thanks so much for taking me through your problem of practice. I've said to you before that I really admire how you encompass vocational teaching. You have compassion and wisdom for the development of the whole pupil while addressing curriculum and content in a really sensitive and inclusive way. You said in your presentation, passion fuels innovation. And I think you're doing really innovative things with your problem of practice this year. So my point of interest was in the data that you collected, namely the visible versus the invisible data. What it was equally important what the data was telling you to what it wasn't telling you. For example, those 85% of children who are engaging in the What I Want to Know board versus the 15% who didn't. And I just wondered if you wanted to speak maybe more to that data and how it kind of impacted on your problem of practice.
Yeah, I think, Chanel, thank you. But I also think for me, prior to this whole PoP, I felt that my children weren't engaging, that maybe there was only 1 or 2 children engaging, but actually it did flip itself for me. I kind of feel that my PoP did flip itself, which was pretty good actually. And I think it was so interesting to see that I had 85%, and I know the 15% for me, there, I don't know the children. Some children put their names on the post-it, some didn't. But I know that the number of children probably didn't engage within that 15%. But I also feel that my children in my classroom can be the educators too about the What Do I Want to Know board, that other children will learn from them, that they can say, oh, I'm not sure about this. And it's also being able to, a little bit of courage too, to be able to go, I don't know this. I'm going to go and put it on my Want to Know board. And for me now, what I hope to do is that, I normally go to What Do I Want to Know board, but what I would like to envisage is that other children will go to the What Do I Want to Know board and be able to say, oh, somebody needs to know something. Oh, I know the answer to that. So it's about including everybody in that. But yeah, I think that 15%, there are children in our class that, are reluctant to engage, So I'm hoping that maybe if I was to look at this probably in the end of June, prior to finishing my year group, would that be increased? And I do hope it would be.
And I think it alludes back to that idea that you talked about of think big, but start small. What you're doing is sending the ripples out into your school community.
Yeah, absolutely. And taking it step by step. And I think that's what I intend to do. But I know our staff need to see it working and to see the benefits. When they see the benefits, even just a simple thing like, and it's just about a conversation over lunchtime or break time. We get people in, and then we just get them, make it bigger.
A bit like that 15% of your kids who you need to have a few more supports and a bit more time for them to engage.
Yeah.
Rona, thank you so much for sharing your problem of practice today.
Thank you.